What's going on, you guys? James here, and today I'm breaking down my 10 worst movies of 2019. Now, listen, I'm an optimist, so if you haven't seen it already, go ahead and check out my top 10 movies of 2019. You'll find the link right above on the screen or down below in the description. Trust me, I don't hate movies. I love movies, but there are some films that just make you want to punch the screen and get up from your chair and shout, "Why are you doing this?" Now, enough of the dramatics. Before we get started though, a little bit of housekeeping. If this is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James. Now, if you're wondering who that is, that's me, and I love talking all about movies. So each and every day I drop a new video. You're not gonna wanna miss out. Go ahead and hit the big red button below if you like what you hear and what you see. Also, don't forget to tap on that notification bell right next to it to keep up to date with anything new that I drop here at the channel. Thank you guys in advance for liking this video, sharing it with all of your friends, and in the comments below, I'm gonna want to hear you guys. What's your worst movie of 2019? I want to know what you guys think, because my worst is probably a lot of people's worst. Okay, so here's how it's gonna go. I'm gonna go 10 through 1, my least worst to my worst, if that's a thing. Now, before I do that, I want to talk about a couple of films, maybe a few films, that were dishonorable mentions for 2019. So let's hop right into it. The first dishonorable mention of 2019 is The Sun Is Also a Star. Well, it is, but the movie itself is not good. It's based on a romance novel, definitely geared towards young adults and teens, starring Charles Melton and Yara Shahidi. Charles Melton does a decent job at carrying the film, but Yara Shahidi, while I liked her in Blackish, I don't think that she's a very good actress yet. She has the potential, she just can't convey emotion properly, so the whole film is pretty much one-dimensional on her end, and then Charles Melton swoops in and shows you how a layered actor can actually work in a film like this. The thing is, the end result was messy. So messy. Now, here's a film that was actually at the bottom of the barrel until I started to realize that 2019 was churning out some bad films. Alita: Battle Angel. And a lot of people actually like this movie. Surprisingly, there's a huge fan base for this that wants a sequel, but I do not want a sequel from this movie. The technology, very impressive. The story, super shallow. The characters, totally unrelatable and not likable. Alita's cool, don't get me wrong, but I think I just didn't care for the movie too much, and it didn't really play to that sci-fi bone in my body. So yeah, it's a dishonorable mention. Now, this next film is one that I really wish was the last of the X-Men films with the 20th Century Studios property. Ah, boy, and we're not getting that. We're getting New Mutants soon, but Dark Phoenix is an awful film. It's a movie that has a good last 20 minutes. That train sequence was great, but everything else was just totally on the nose and very heavy-handed. The dialogue didn't feel natural at all, and Sophie Turner did not convince me. And also, it doesn't help that Jennifer Lawrence really didn't want to be there, you can just tell. Yeah, I'd say skip this one. And here's my last dishonorable mention, 21 Bridges, starring Chadwick Boseman. Boy, oh boy, man. Here's how I would break down the story for you if I was writing the IMDb synopsis. In a city full of cops with really bad New York accent, there's one that has a decent New York accent that goes and finds out that his cop buddies are cop killers in a sense, and now he's got to take down drug traffickers and also cops because they're not really cops, they're criminals in film. But as funny as that sounds, those aren't the 10 worst movies of 2019. So let's go ahead and start with number 10. Harriet. Harriet's directed by Kasi Lemmons, and it stars Cynthia Erivo as Harriet Tubman, Leslie Odom Jr. as William Still, and it's cool to see Janelle Monáe as Marie Buchanan. But honestly, that's pretty much where it stops. When you look at the cast list, you're like, oh, this is impressive, and then you watch the movie and you think, Harriet Tubman is a huge African-American icon. She's awesome. And then the film turns out to be a very generic, by-the-numbers biopic that does not spark any sort of interest or intrigue outside of the first 10 to 15 minutes. It just felt very unnatural, the entire movie. And then also a huge complaint I had about the film, why did they add in stuff for Hollywood purposes? There was this antagonist, and he's a black man that went to go and try to hunt down Harriet Tubman. I read somewhere that actually was not a thing. I'm sorry. But with Harriet Tubman's story, you don't fictionalize things. Guess what? The facts are there. The stories are there. Don't put things in just for Hollywood's sake. And Kasi Lemmons, I don't know, I feel like maybe a better director would have been suited for this role, and just it didn't work for me at all. Okay, so let's move on to number 9, Velvet Buzzsaw. Dang it, I had so much hope for this movie when I saw the trailer for the first time, because Jake Gyllenhaal is amazing. And then on top of that, you add director Dan Gilroy, who did Nightcrawler, a film that captivated me from start to finish. You should get a better film, and this is a weird movie, and it's just weird to be weird. And then you start to get bored midway through the film and you start to realize, okay, it's a horror movie, it's a thriller, but then it plays with your mind a little bit and you don't really know the direction of the movie. Velvet Buzzsaw is exactly what you would get if you put a very sloppy dish for Thanksgiving together with a good dish. The good dish cannot save the sloppiness of the dish. The taste is awful. That is such a bad analogy, but trust me, it makes sense when you watch the movie. You have a decent premise that turns into a rotten film because everyone outside of Jake Gyllenhaal is unbearably bad. Even Jake Gyllenhaal is kind of annoying in this movie, but I don't blame him. It's the writing. The writing is just awful, man. Let's just move on to number 8 before I get sad all over again. Wait, did I say before I get sad all over again? Never mind, still sad. Number 8, Lucy in the Sky, starring Natalie Portman. Okay, raise your hand if you saw this movie. Well, shoot, I can't see if you're raising your hand, but let me know in the comments below if the aspect ratio thing really made you upset. And you'll know what I'm talking about when you watch it, but for those who haven't seen it and know nothing about this film, director Noah Hawley thought it was a good idea to play around with the aspect ratio. Now, that's more of a gimmick for me, so it goes from 4:3, 16:9, really full screen, and then a weird widescreen ratio that kind of shrinks and shrinks. Why? Why did the director feel the need to do this and distract from the performances on screen? And then you have Jon Hamm really just being there. Doesn't really contribute much to the plot other than being a total jerk, but I guess that's because that's his character. And then you have Natalie Portman with this very weird southern accent that really broke the immersion for me. So yeah, Lucy in the Sky is one of the most unpleasant experiences in a movie theater that I've had in recent memory because, well, it's just not fun. Man, this is so weird because I'm usually not critical, but with these movies, who am I kidding? They need to be criticized. They're so bad. Let's dive into, goodness gracious, what number are we on? 1, 2, 3, 7. Number 7, Dead Don't Die, or The Dead Don't Die. Lord, it doesn't even matter what it's called because the movie is absolutely a drag. It's such a chore to get through. A horror comedy, and yes, it's a zombie apocalypse film, starring Bill Murray, Adam Driver. You would think just based on that alone, the movie would be absolutely fantastic. But the movie is such a drag. Man, the jokes aren't funny. Nothing outside of the first 10 minutes is very compelling. And then it ends on such a weird note. And if you haven't seen the film, then you probably wouldn't understand why I'm so weirded out. But it was so unnecessary that I left the theater thinking, how in the world am I gonna get these 2 hours back of my life? Because The Dead Don't Die is not a film that is very good at being a comedy. It's not very good at being a zombie horror movie, and it's not good at being slapstick. I mean, sure, it's cool to see Tilda Swinton in this role with her samurai katana dual-wielding stuff. Like, that scene was pretty neat. But where was that for the rest of the film? Nowhere to be found. Honestly, if its intention was to be dry and totally directionless, well, Jim Jarmusch, you accomplished your goal. But that doesn't make it a good movie. Okay, so let's move on to number 6, a film that I had such hopes for, that I was so excited to see, because it's Will Smith. Oh man, it's so cool in this nice setting, and it's Ang Lee, who did The Life of Pi. But Gemini Man, oh Gemini Man. If only I could send a duplicate version of myself to that movie so I wouldn't have to sit through that total mess of a script, and the story is narratively a mess, and the exposition through dialogue is awful, and nothing works. Clive Owen is just a totally unbelievable bad guy. I don't even care for his performance. The technology is cool, but then after a while you start to notice that this is a movie showcasing technology, not showcasing an actual good film. I know that there's people out there that love this movie, and there are people that enjoy exactly what Ang Lee delivered. Yeah, there are some things that work, like that dirt bike sequence was awesome throughout the streets of whatever city they were in, because the movie's kind of forgettable and didn't really do a good job at telling you where it was. The movie itself is such a mess. Like, I think what they did with the film technically is impressive, but it's a movie before anything else. Technology will always come second no matter what, because if you don't have a good film, if you don't have a good foundation, I can care less if you're using 8000K footage or whatever he shot this in, the Dolby 500,000 XLR camera. I have no idea what he did with this movie, but it's bad. It also doesn't help that this film's production was delayed for so long because the script kept passing through a ton of hands, which probably led to the messiness in the entire story. So this is definitely another miss for Ang Lee, and I'm kind of wondering where he is now. Are we gonna get the old Ang Lee anytime soon? Or are we gonna continue to get this Ang Lee? Because if we are, we're in trouble. Okay guys, so we're here. My 5 worst films of 2019. Now I'm looking at this next one and, oh my gosh. I just remember literally trying to keep my eyes open because of how boring the story was and how unconvincing so many people and so many actors were in this movie. So number 5, The Goldfinch, based on a novel that is a bestseller and apparently really does sound good. Oh boy. Okay, so who's in this one? You want to know, right? Let's talk about it. Ansel Elgort as Theodore, who, I mean, in Baby Driver was fantastic, and then this is total crap. Then you have Finn Wolfhard, who unfortunately finds all of his success in Stranger Things and in nothing else. I don't know what's going on here. I really think that Hollywood needs to figure it out because he's good. I just don't know why he's being used in so many bad roles, but moving on. Even Nicole Kidman is in this movie. This cast is stacked, and the cinematographer, he's my favorite of all time, Roger Deakins. That was the best thing about the movie, is the cinematography, and the rest of it was just atrocious. I couldn't tell you one moment from that film that stuck with me and that I smiled about. Everything about this movie was a big mission just to get through. Each scene felt like it took forever to turn the page, and no pun intended. And what I wanted to do is just see the end credits roll, because the story itself is very long. It goes from Theodore as a kid to Theodore as an adult, and then you have on top of that Finn Wolfhard being this weird Russian, Ukrainian actor guy, and his accent is awful. Honestly, can we start casting actual Russians or actual Ukrainians to play these roles if you're gonna give them such a heavy accent? Because Finn Wolfhard did not do a good job in this movie. And it's a shame because honestly, I like almost every single actor in this film. I don't like The Goldfinch because the direction was not there at all. Goodness gracious, that's a book I will never open because of this film. Maybe I should. Nah. Okay, so let's move on to number 4, Dumbo, a live action movie I thought we would never get because we never needed. Oh man, where do I start with this film? Okay, the entire time I was sitting in the press screening, I kept thinking to myself, man, Dumbo, this could work, it's promising. Oh, Colin Farrell, I love him. Wow, the CGI is amazing. And then you have Danny DeVito playing the ringleader of the circus and totally obnoxious, and honestly the acting was not very good either for anybody. And then the jokes were dry, and you can tell it's clearly appealing to kids, which I get and I understand, but there was nothing that captivated my imagination. Dumbo is basically what you get when you sit down with a room full of executives and you ask, hey, what's one film that really strikes a chord in so many kids that they're gonna go and see anyway, and how can we make this a live action film? And this is the result you get. Dumbo did not work because Tim Burton has lost his way entirely, and that's probably something else we should talk about right now. Tim Burton. Okay, where are you? You know, I really want to see the old Tim Burton because this Tim Burton is just awful. I mean, he's making movies that are not resonating with me at all. And maybe they are for some people, I get it. But he's not taking any more risks. The studios are holding him back, it seems. I don't know, it's such a weird concept because Tim Burton seems to be like, okay, let me cash in and I'm good. But that was never Tim Burton. That's not the Tim Burton that I know. So it's weird, but Dumbo is number 4 because it's just not enjoyable, it's not entertaining, and honestly, the entire time in the theater, I did not speak to one person or see one kid that actually had a smile on their face. So hey, that goes to show you a lot about what Dumbo really did in the end. Oh boy. Alrighty, so we're in my 3 worst movies of 2019. I cannot believe I have to talk about these 3 films. But I guess we'll hop right into it. Oh boy, this is rough. Okay, so number 3, Countdown, a horror film that is such a failure. Such a failure. Directed by Justin Deck, whose previous credits include, I don't even know, let's see, Boats, a 6-minute short film. They're 2 totally different films, which is okay, because directors do that, they jump around from genres. But let me ask you a question. Don't you want to maybe have your first feature-length debut be something a little bit stronger, especially if it's horror? Can it not be cheesy and cliche like Countdown was? So let's start there. Countdown is entirely generic. It's a studio horror film that has no reason to exist. And unfortunately, it stars a lead actress that I actually like. Elizabeth Lail is actually good. I love her in Netflix's You series, and in this film, she's the best part of the movie. But then after you get past the midway point, you start to realize that this film has no inspiration. All of the scares are jump scares, and the makeup and prosthetics look okay when you can see them for the last 5 minutes. It's totally awful. The film itself is not fun. It's not a fun horror movie. It's not even campy. And the film's concept is actually not bad. It's an app that tells you when you're gonna die, and if you try to break it, it doesn't even matter because it resets anyway and you're stuck forever with this death app. I mean, honestly, I was rebuking that thing in the name of Jesus. But anyway, this is the film that makes people not want to see a horror movie in theaters anymore and wait for it to come to Netflix, Hulu, or whatever streaming platform that you're on. Because I go to the theater watching a horror movie for the experience. This thing doesn't create an experience, it creates a huge headache. Alrighty, let's move on. So the number 2 worst movie of 2019 is... oh man, I don't even know if I can say it. Charlie's Angels. starring Kristen Stewart, Naomi Scott, directed by Elizabeth Banks, starring Elizabeth Banks and Patrick Stewart. Oh, we're still recording. I'm so sorry. Okay. Now, if you haven't seen my review for this already, I implore you to see this review. The link is at the top. I mean, you're gonna want to see how emotionally upset I was about this film, because I actually appreciate the previous Charlie's Angels movies, you know, Full Throttle and all those with Cameron Diaz, because Cameron Diaz, Lucy Liu, they're all amazing. And in this movie, you guys, listen, Kristen Stewart can act. I know she can, but they gave her some lines of dialogue here that are absolutely awful. They're trying to pander to millennials and Gen Zers, but guess what? I don't need a movie to scream that at me. I need a movie to naturally allow that to flow. And then you have Naomi Scott being the best part of the movie and everything else is just totally awful. And then you have the aftermath of Charlie's Angels. I have to find this article right now for you guys, 2 seconds. Okay, so I found the article, but I'm not gonna read it verbatim. Basically, Elizabeth Banks is blaming men for Charlie's Angels bombing at the box office and getting awful reviews. Men are not to blame for Charlie's Angels. Sorry, your film is just awful. Guess what? Men and women alike loved Wonder Woman. Why? Because it is a likable film with clear and coherent direction. Charlie's Angels just wants to be a shoot-'em-up film that has zero substance. You can't tell me that this film is even enjoyable in the slightest. You can try to convince me, but I am not going to agree with you. There's nothing about this film that really stuck with me other than, boy, it's awful. And at the time, it was my worst movie of 2019 until this number one. So let's go ahead and transition into my number one. I feel like I need to read this off a card or something like the Academy Award. And the worst movie of 2019 goes to Cats. Whatever, stupid film. I don't think I've ever been so uninterested in a film before Cats. Now, sure, there are some movies that are marginally worse than Cats because there are a couple of numbers in this movie that I actually liked. But guess what? The rest of the film is an absolutely awful bit of entertainment. Actually, it's not even entertaining. It's just a cinematic failure. The budget for this film exceeds hundreds of $millions because half of that is probably going towards Taylor Swift. And then you have a cast that is actually pretty impressive. Idris Elba, like I said, Taylor Swift, she can sing. She can't act. Jason Derulo, who can also sing but can't act. Directed by Tom Hooper, who did, I think, King's Speech, if I'm not mistaken, and he also did Les Mis. How do you go from that to this? And you guys, this is the first time I'm seeing this. Like, even before, when I did my review, I didn't even see this. Steven Spielberg is the producer on this film, or a producer. I can't break this iPad. I can't do it. I can't do it. I am so frustrated by this film. I know I said it in my review, which you can find on the screen above, but Cats is exactly what I'd imagine coughing up a hairball feels like. There is no story. It is the most bland, uninspiring film that I might have seen in the last decade. I don't know. But guys, on second watch, Venom might be better than this crap. And then on top of that, you get a movie that it's actually not even done. Universal had to re-release the film to theaters because Tom Hooper thought it was a good idea to go ahead and redo some of the CGI because you forgot to take off the ring on Judi Dench's hand. And then also Universal took it off their for your considerations page because this was supposed to do well at the Oscars. Oh my God. Dancing cockroaches. They're not even motion captured humans on the bodies of CGI cockroaches. This film is the worst movie of 2019, and it might be the worst movie of the last decade. So there you have it, guys, my 10 worst movies of 2019. Now, in case you skipped all the way to the end of this video, let's recap. Number 10, Harriet. Number 9, Velvet Buzzsaw. Number 8, Lucy in the Sky. Number 7, The Dead Don't Die. Number 6, Gemini Man. Number 5, The Goldfinch. Number 4, Dumbo. Number 3, Countdown. Number 2, Charlie's Angels. And number 1, oh, got a hairball. Sorry. Cats. Man, that was so much fun, you guys. I'm looking forward to doing more lists and discussion pieces just like this. So if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the big red button below and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to smash that notification bell to stay up to date with everything that I'm doing here at the channel. And I would love it if you could like this video, share it with all of your friends. Also in the comments below, let me know what you think of my 10 worst movies of 2019 and if you agree with my number 1. Alrighty guys, again, thank you so much for watching and I'll catch you at the next screening. Alrighty, so what's next? Cats? Oh gosh, I'm assuming the fetal position. Can't talk about this film, I can't do it.